Just published tonight. I'm going to read it straight off the lead out of the Wall Street Journal. Quote, President-elect Donald Trump's pick to run the Health and Human Services Department traded more than $300,000 in shares of health-related companies over the past 4 years while sponsoring and advocating legislation that potentially could affect those companies' stocks. Congressman Tom Price, a Georgia Republican, bought and sold stock in about 40 healthcare, pharmaceutical, and biomedical companies since 2012, including a dozen in the current congressional session. That's according to a Wall Street Journal review of hundreds of pages of stock trades. In the same 2-year period, he sponsored 9 and co-sponsored 35 health-related bills in the House. His stock trades included Amgen, Bristol Myers Squibb, Eli Lilly, Pfizer, and Aetna. His largest single stock buy was August of this year, between $50,000 and $100,000 in a biomedical firm whose largest shareholder is a congressman on the Trump transition team. That stock has since doubled in price since he bought it in August. Joining us once again is the newly announced counselor to the president, Trump campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thank you again.
Thank you.
If these stock filings are accurate that the Wall Street Journal is reporting on, your pick to head up Health and Human Services in the cabinet was personally investing in companies while he was sponsoring legislation that could affect their stock price. If these stock filings are accurate, would that be a problem for you?
I'm learning about that while I'm sitting here, so I'd have to learn more information. I don't even know what the rules are that govern the ability of members of Congress to have stocks. I take it that they're getting that information from information he has filed.
Yeah.
So it's not a lack of transparency or some furtive cover-up. It's actually information he's filed. He's put it all out there for everyone to see, which A, I appreciate as a citizen. But B, I really, what I know about Tom Price, the congressman and the HHS designee, is that he's for free market, patient-centric health care, that he has voted to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act many times because he believes, and he hears from many people, that reducing our quality and increasing our prices and reducing our choice and our access was really not what was intended for many Americans. Some have had coverage, some are very happy, many are not. I'm sure you saw the polls just this week that show 2 real lenses about the Affordable Care Act as part of President Obama's legacy. You have people saying you have people saying it was his greatest accomplishment, and you have people saying it was greatest failure. So on this particular, his
6-point-something million people signing up in this current enrollment period.
That.
But if he's got an ethics problem here, I mean, and if what the Wall Street Journal is reporting is accurate, and what they're reporting is not very complicated, he was trading in stock while sponsoring legislation that could have affected the price of that stock. Is that the kind of ethical problem that would pose an issue for him in terms of being nominated? I looked at the code of ethics that was put out by the transition. A lot of it is about, whether or not people can be lobbyists after they leave the administration and stuff like that way down the line, which you'll have a very hard time enforcing when it comes to it. But something like this, if he did this, if he was trading for his personal gain on information that he had because he was a lawmaker.
Well, that doesn't say that.
Well,
in fairness, but right. Does it say it's illegal?
Well, if it's a violation of the Stock Act, then, presumably there'd be an investigation of that. But if it wasn't illegal, if it wasn't technically illegal, but he was still affecting a stock price through his work as a congressman and then buying that stock, that'd be a problem, right?
So you just gave the Democratic senators a really good line of questioning to ask him in this hearing. I'm sure they will, Rachel. I'm sure they're watching you.
Well done, well done. Let me ask you something along the same lines. I'm not going to ask you about the president-elect's tax returns because that's very well trod ground. But he did release a financial disclosure form when he
104 pages.
And in that financial disclosure, one of the lines on one of those 104 pages said that he had between $3 million and $15 million invested in a hedge fund that has placed a particularly big, aggressive bet that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are going to be privatized. So he picks his Treasury nominee last month. The day after he picks Steve Mnuchin to be his Treasury nominee, Mnuchin says, I want to privatize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And the stock goes through the roof. And if Donald Trump is invested in that hedge fund that took that big bet, he just financially benefited to a pretty significant amount with a multi-million-dollar investment from what his Treasury nominee said.
Well, first, I don't know if he still has that investment.
Yeah, and can we know that?
Well, I don't know. I'll get back to you. First of all, I don't know.
It's important.
Because remember, he also has accountants and lawyers and protocol officers working literally around the clock to make sure that everything that needs to be done for a man who's been so brilliant and so successful in business, unprecedented in modern times in our presidency, Rachel, is sufficiently disentangled for him to take his job as President of the United States and focus on that 110%. Secondly, I would expect the Treasury Secretary designee of a conservative Republican president to say they'd like to privatize Fannie and Freddie. I don't think that should strike anybody as brand new information or tied to some investment.
And it wouldn't be controversial if we knew whether or not the president was with every other president we've known. You've never even had to ask. You could just look up and check to see whether or not the president had a financial entanglement where he would be personally benefiting. The issue here is that we don't know what Trump has. I mean, the New York Times asked the transition, does he still hold this particular investment, which was directly affected by this announcement the day after he announced him? And the answer was, we're not releasing that information at this time. But that would be easy enough to announce.
No, the third thing I want to say about that, though, is that's a pretty small holding compared to everything that the man has said. So it's
3 to
not
15 million.
Well, it sounds like a lot of money to me and you, but the fact is that it's not a huge investment when you consider everything else. The idea that he would pick Steve Mnuchin to be the Treasury Secretary and say, hey, while you're out there, say you'd like to privatize Fannie and Freddie, an idea that many Republicans and conservatives have had for a very long time. That doesn't seem to me to be.
Should we not pay attention to any potential private financial gain he's going to have from any of his actions?
No, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is, I think the presumptive guilt or the presumptive negativity.
Question.
Not necessarily by you, but by many others. It's ubiquitous. The other thing I just wanted to say is a lot of the stock market seems to like the fact that Donald Trump will be the next president. It's been booming, 20%. It's up to 20,000, close to 20,000. It's had, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so gains in the days, or maybe more by now, since he was elected president. And by the way, the opposite was predicted. First it was, he can never win, this is a joke, go home. There's no map, there's no path. We heard it here, we heard it on this network and elsewhere. And then the minute he got elected, literally, he takes the call from Secretary Clinton. She concedes, everyone concedes, and congratulates him. I was standing right there. And the stock market likes it in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and if you're going to short the expectations market, you're definitely going to win in this environment now. We both are. We could give that advice to everybody, but there is something unique going on here. In addition to you guys winning and getting to brag about that and and rub the naysayers' noses in and everything.
It's really not. It's honestly not that. Do I look like somebody rubs people's noses in anything?
Like government of Azerbaijan, they rent out Trump hotel suites at the Trump Hotel in Washington. The president-elect makes money from that. When his building project gets greenlit by the government in Buenos Aires, he makes money from that.
Well, his corporation does.
Yes, and he's the primary owner of his corporation. So it's money for him. Anybody who wants to, any foreign country, anyone, they now have the option, basically, to pay money to the American president by doing favors for this business that he owns.
By renting a hotel room?
Yeah.
I just think that's so attenuated. And by the way, the money goes to the corporation.
Corruption is still corruption, right? And
that's not corruption.
That
is not corruption. It's a hotel room.
But if you want to give money to the president, the American president, we have never had a way to do that before. No foreign government has had a way to do that before. The American people, special interests, haven't had a way to funnel money to the American president right now.
And you can.
Funneling money to him. No, but you can through his businesses as long as he still has a business, as long as he still has an ownership.